exactly. And the other elements of it is, other small wins that I always talk to a lot of venues about is looking at things like, arrivals. Staggering arrivals. There's so many businesses I've spoken to that can go, we can only allow 12 people to come in a 15-minute window, and it's going, well, so does that say you wouldn't see a group of 15? And they're like, well, yeah, we can. And I was like, well, okay, well, we can increase that therefore. So, and we can't possibly do, or they can't do a group of 15.
I guess they don't want everyone arriving at once, right? So then how do you?
So how do you just make it smarter, where it's like you can restrict it based on you're not going to have 30s come in the space of an hour, so you can work on that.
Welcome to Captive Conversations, brought to you by Captive Wi-Fi. I'm your host, Adam Foreman. This podcast brings you the best stories from suppliers, marketers, and operators from our beloved hospitality sector. Now, let's get on with the show. Hi, I've tried another one. I tried it earlier today, but welcome to Captive Conversations, episode 75. We have Ed from Bums on Seats. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
This is the new way of me introducing the podcast. I'm still fumbling my words, but we'll get there. Thank you. It was awesome. Thank you for coming. This is going to be a really interesting story because what you do as well as the history. So it's going to be super. I don't know. I haven't read the ChatGPT, the whole thing, because it debriefed.
Yeah, I'm just so curious to what's picked up, but
I can't wait the sources.
Yeah, can't wait to see it. But yeah, no, of course, I'm so excited to be here.
Amazing. So we had Glenda on earlier, and the TMM event would have already been over by now because it's coming out later.
Yeah.
So that's tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we're all very excited about it. But she gave some questions. So one of them was very in keeping to her. If you were going to put on an event for 800 people, 800 hospitality marketers, what would you do to make it engaging, valuable, and for people so that they just couldn't miss out?
Yeah. I think I knew she'd ask something like that. Of course she would. But I think yeah, it's a really good thing. I think one of the things I try to go to as many of these events as possible, and I think from all the sponsored ones to the ones that are like every quarter. And I think one thing I personally notice is that it's trying to stay in sort of one lane and trying to get everyone on the same page. I think what I think is really valuable when it comes to people like marketeers, they've got their one budget is made up of everything from paid to social media to website development, and let alone obviously labor and all the things that come with it. And a lot of them will also, a lot of business I've even worked with have like a sales function that sit alongside it. And I think that actually almost having a holistic view to a holistic event that actually targets all of those, whether it be breakout sessions and whatnot, I think, I'd like to see a lot, for me personally, to make it really valuable. And I know for a lot of my clients, having that, understanding that sales function in particular and understanding how it kind of folds into all the other parts of that budget, and how, even if it's more, understanding what that split can look like, I think is really, will be really powerful. And I think obviously there needs to be some drinks involved. Anyone that knows me knows I love a wine, particularly rosé is mine. I think that obviously is kind of a given, but I think having that holistic view and even kind of fold in any sort of how operations and marketing work, that sort of, holy trinity, I call it, and how, they can better work together is going to be so, is how I would feel.
No, I think that's great. I'm with you that I'd love the breakout idea, because it doesn't have to be big, does it?
Yeah.
It can be people, and everything's connected, and it isn't as siloed as it used to be. Yeah. Right. So you want to be able to influence.
People got to work together. Yeah. And I see it so often where they completely, not just saying marketers but I'm saying, operations, sometimes they work in isolation, and actually it's about, that collaboration and being more efficient in doing what works rather than trying to, and also having the knowledge across departments to be able to bridge it all up.
Amazing. And the second question, what is the best way you can support hospitality marketers right now with all the challenges that are up against, like new legislation, budget tightening, and things changing?
Well, I'm obviously a manager of Bums on Seats. So Bums on the Seats names in the title, it does what it says on the tin. So I think, obviously there's, bumsonseats.org is a way to start. But I think, it kind of, it's a lot of our business model is based on that, right? So it's looking at what efficiencies are in place, what can be done. I think I often look at it from with my both, operations, sales, our marketing hats on, is kind of going, right, I think, what have you got in your arsenal that you already have? How can you better utilize it? And as well as anyone, sort of like, you might have this plethora of tech and systems. You know, for me, I always say with all of my clients, start there. What have you got? You don't need to be investing in so many different products, but actually how can you better optimize the ones you have, get them to work harder, smarter, faster for you. And that's kind of where I start when you're looking at budgets and restraints, and a lot of the, probably by the time this comes out, budget probably would have been out. So with all that uncertainty, what can you control? You can't control what's going to happen there. So what can you? And it's looking that level of efficiency is where I would go.
Yeah. It's interesting. Lots of people immediately think I'm going to get an agency and just spend money on Meta, and that's the solution. But it isn't. You can start with the basics, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think and being able to track that ROI, and if you are going down that route of, you know, meta agencies and things like that, that's great. And I think there's definitely a time and a place for that. But I think actually then, you know, how are you tracking you know, causal ROI, not just correlation, or saying we've done this and it's resulted in this many engagements and whatnot. How many actual sales has it done? And I know you've had Vic Searle on here, for example, and I know she'll talk about till the cows come home, you know. And I know she's got some really great examples of great case studies and ROIs. And I think that's where you start look at all those things and assess which ones are giving you the best ROI and where can you further excel on those.
I think the tracking it's better, and it's still difficult, right, to get everything tracking, but it's definitely better than it used to be. I think tracking is always difficult when it comes to especially the reservations platform. There's only certain limits that you can do with everything. I'm preaching to the choir.
I was about to say this year, that's a lot of what I'm doing with a lot of clients at the moment is that whole, literally yesterday I was with the business that doing exactly that, everything from, you know, tracking everything from, you know, whether it's newsletters or whether it's signups, whether it's Wi-Fi, all that stuff, all the way through to how are you using that and how are you tracking, you know, all the successes and all the amazing campaigns that are out there at the moment. How are you making sure there's money on the table?
Okay, standard questions. Best hospitality experience.
Best hospitality experience. I'm probably going to throw a bit of a curveball, I think, because I think when I hear a hospitality experience, it doesn't necessarily mean when I'm in the venue. I think it means it's from, you know, from everything. And I think, and I've got, there's one example that I was working with where a bit of my other half was doing the London Marathon, and I booked out a section of one of the Cubitt House, one of their sites, and actually the pre bit of it, the person I was speaking to, and I'm not even sure she's still there at the moment, but she was fantastic in everything, organising up until it was, you know, 30-40 odd people, and everything, you know, was constant, you know, rapport building she was doing, and it was a really great experience she was giving me. If something didn't work out quite well, she would offer me something else, and it was really tailoring to what I needed in my budget, and she was able to work with that. And then when I was actually in the venue, there was actually a couple of experiences that didn't go to plan. And then, but the aftercare I then got, she was straight on the phone to me after hearing that, and she was like, I know, because she's got some of the data on me, she's gone, I know you liked that bottle of rosé, frankly. And was like, let me come back in, bring a friend, I'll come meet with you, have that bottle of wine on us. And there was that element. Actually, that for me was a really great hospitality experience. And even though the actual, you know, there was some hiccups in the middle, but I actually think that hasn't made me go, oh, you know what, I'm never going to go back. So for me, that was a really good one. And I think, and there's a lot of other experiences I've had recently. I actually think I love to travel, and I think there's stuff to be learned in other countries. And, you know, I've just been away for a few weeks in Europe, and I think, you know, I was at one hotel I was staying at, within about 6 hours, they knew what bottle of rosé I'd want, for example, for the rest of the trip. And it was that hospitality and that service I think was really great. And they didn't have, you know, necessarily all the data and the tech and everything like that to support that, but they just knew. And it's that hospitality, and that I will remember that for when I go back. So, you know, that was in Lake Garda, and I'd do that when I go back. I'm going to go back to that same place. So that same experience I got. And I think that's really a really powerful tool to recognise.
I think that's amazing they did that. They turned you. You're not a detractor. They knew that there were challenges, and to follow up and at least do that is, like, you know, it's smart. It puts a smile on your face as well.
Exactly.
They care. It's the care.
Exactly. It's that whole thing. It's like the word of mouth. Like, you know, I don't talk to people about, you know, some people have bad experiences and they tell like 8 people.
Yes.
You know, they might tell 2 people when they've had a good one. And I think, you know, I haven't told people about that didn't go to plan, but I did about the whole experience, saying actually if someone recommends a pub or whatever in that area, I'll go, I would go back. I would recommend that one again.
And for the hotel thing, I said to Glenda was saying something similar earlier. They just have it. It's a complete. I wish more of that was in restaurants. And it's difficult because it's not always the same people, and it's a whole different ecosystem. But the level of care and attention in hotels is just mind blowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think like they knew things like it was my birthday, and it was like, I think I saw you before I went away actually, and they and that's, you know, they knew that, they upgraded us, everything like that. They didn't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
They just did, because it's part of
I love that.
a lot of that culture.
I love that. Okay, so we're gonna go. Oh, sorry. The next one: best hospitality tech.
I think, and I'm not gonna cop out on this on this one, but I think, again, kind of what I just touched on around, you know as well as anyone, being like, the tech is only as good as the way it's been onboarded, implemented, and then used moving forward. And you could ask anyone, and everyone's going to have different experiences based on whoever onboarded or whoever implemented it, and everything in between. And I think, for me, that means there are so many good platforms out there that I think other people would say that were even better than what I would think. And but with that being said, I know the one to watch, or the one I'm watching and keeping an eye on, that's Nori.
Okay.
I think some of the stuff that they're doing, and some of the investment that they're getting, and some of the noise that they're making, I'm curious to see where that's going. And I've got a few clients that are using their platform, and I know they've got their predictive AI in an industry that's, statistically speaking, that's kind of been seen as not being the forefront of a lot of innovation when it comes to technology and using it. I think they are doing some nice stuff with AI, and where it's kind of soft and slow and steady for an industry that might be, it's very human based, very relationship based and rapport building based. I think it's a really powerful tool what they're doing and how they're approaching it. So I'd be curious to see
what they're going to plug in next,
what they'll do next. So that's the one I'm watching at the moment.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, a nice investment I saw. So hopefully they can add more to the portfolio. I think it's a challenge, right? There's a lot of they've tried to bring stuff together, which is nice. It's a pretty cool platform. But you're right. There's so much out there.
There's so much.
More and more every other week. There's like something out. I literally spoke to a client this week who is using an Australian product that's helping them with bookings and stuff. And I was like, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
And it plugs in.
There are so many things out there, and we're building something in the background as well. But obviously, I can't claim that that's this one out there yet, because I can't possibly claim my own product as that. But it's something that obviously we're doing. We're working with that on AI and stuff. But I'm sure we'll go into that in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited to hear that. Okay, so we're basically going to go back in time.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, before Bums on Seats, before I quite like the line that it did here. It was like, you've gone from front of house in Brighton to leading UK's biggest outsourced hospitality sales agency, which is a pretty nice line to be honest.
Yeah, I like
that. Where did the journey begin? Did you early doors? Did you work in hospital early?
Yeah.
Or...
So the way I like to phrase it is, and I always caveat this, but I always say I've been working in hospitality for as long as I'm legally allowed to say I am. So I'm based in I grew up in a town just outside Brighton, and so I was working more on the local, working in local pubs and things like that, and pretty much from again legally allowed to. I was working there, and I was kind of working that sort of everything from server to bartender, and then supervisor. And
what age was that?
So
can tell people.
So I started when I was about 17, so
nice.
16, 17, and then with that front of house kind of came when I was about 18.
Nice.
And then from that, and then I did a lot through my A-levels and things like that through front of house, and then again working up that sort of hierarchy. And then I went to university in Manchester, and up there I then was working. Doing a bit of social media consultancy for a couple of different types of businesses. Yeah. And then also, I was actually randomly working for a university comparison, sort of like a design my night or time out version of unis. Yeah. And my job was to go around to different sixth forms and colleges and speak to students on how, you can use this to understand where you're going to go next. And, it was quite difficult. I was like 19, 20, going in front of about 200, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, when I'm only a year older than telling them what to do. Yeah. It was quite character building, should I say. I can imagine. I had my Britney mic and everything. So, but that was all really good. I was traveling a lot for it. And
so is that while you were studying?
Yeah, so I was doing all three things while I was studying. And then...
So not busy then?
Busy tour, just about got through my degree, but
and while partying at the same time,
and while partying obviously at the same time, and then from that, when I left university, that's the only time I've been out of the sector. I did a year in recruitment, specifically within social workers, and it was proper office space, my first proper sort of office kind of job. And recruitment, I respect anyone that works in recruitment. It is hard.
Yeah.
It is, there are some things that you have to do which are, it's just relentless.
Yeah.
And you learn a thing or two, obviously. And I started my own, they call it desks, don't they? So I started my own desk, my own sort of area of expertise in that, and then sort of grew that, brought someone on, did it for a year. And then that was, as I say, based in Manchester. But then because I'm sort of Sussex, Brighton, born and bred, I thought, actually, you know what, I want to make the move. So then I moved back into hospitality, and that's where I landed at Design by Night.
Yeah.
So, and then
what stage was Design by Night at that point?
So that was just before, from memory, just before the acquisition by Access Group.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, I came on as one of the account managers, and there was only 3 of us. I was the 3rd.
Yeah.
And then by the time I left a few years later, there was 9 in that team, and there was 12 in support and things like that. So, that team grew, and obviously the acquisition with Access Group allowed them to really accelerate their growth.
So what was the role when you started there?
So I was an account manager when I started.
Yeah.
And then by the time I left, I was sort of the second in command to that part of it.
Nice.
And then.
So what was that going? So you've gone from working in hospo and then going onto the dark side as a provider for hospo, because having that knowledge is pretty handy.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was the transition like being in Collins? It's a beefy product, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different modules and options within there.
Yeah.
And we had Catherine Allen on the other day.
Oh yeah.
So she, were you there when she was there? Or
No,
did you
we just crossed.
Yeah.
We're I think literally maybe a couple of months apart.
Yeah. So she was. I remember her saying that the platform was so beefy, and people who don't use all the parts of it. What was it like moving through that, and also being able to be having that the growth piece, because it's very different going from hospo to the other side.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. When I was in the front of house and the operations side, I think actually I was, it was paper diaries, and it was, if it was you would have a deposit if you didn't pay in cash, that whole aspect of it. So actually going into Design by Night, I think using that knowledge going and working Design by Night and working specifically with Collins, I was like, you know what, actually, I wish I had this when I was there, and therefore I could relate to businesses that were or onboarding or using or wanting to know how to get more out of it. Actually, I was able to lean into that and go, I wish I had this, and I still do now. I still when all the stuff I'm doing at the moment and advising. I think that was actually it was actually easier for me to do it that way. It wasn't. It was pretty seamless.
Yeah. Well, you understood the pain, I guess, right?
I understood the pain, I understood the gap, and I understood the need for it. And I think, working at a company like Design by Night, I was, I was in my mid to early 20s, working at a company like Design by Night. You get to go to all the coolest bars, the coolest venues. Like, again, it made it a lot easier to transition into that. And Design by Night was a really great business. It was a lot of the people. I was literally at a wedding for someone that I used to work with a couple of weeks ago. So, it was a really nice like family feel as well. So even if there was things that you couldn't quite grasp, but then again there was so many people there to support you, and it was a brilliant company to work for.
Yeah. So then, what you ended up with, like client lead or something? What was the?
Yeah. So it was a sort of a client lead. So basically my role was then to take on the big contracts that were coming in and whatnot, and I was looking after those big ones. So working with the likes of I was taking on quite a bit like things like Stonegate at one point, bits of Mitch and Butler and things like that. So yeah, I was working with lots of different ones there, and again then my role was again with the rest of the team was to train them on things, the more technical side of things, which was more my lane, as well. So it was kind of,
I still don't know enough stuff about it. I mean, I just told there's an inbox in there. I had no idea. So there was loads. So it was really interesting to hear and also the different options of bolt-ons and stuff. So okay, so we're up to that point, and
then so I was really close with Nick Towson, who was the founder, and when he exited the business, I think there was just a few things that I was like, you know what, actually, I want to roll my sleeves up. I want to get back into not necessarily the ops side of things, but I want to get back on, boots on the ground and kind of get my hands dirty, basically. And so I was looking what was out there, and I had actually worked with Amber Stainings, who's the founder of Bums on Seats, on a different project. She was working at the time on what was the Deltic group at the time, and I was the account manager for that. So we were working quite closely together, and we were we kept in touch, and Bums on Seats kind of came up, and obviously I think that was one of her first accounts, and I think it was just something I was watching, and I thought to myself, that's maybe one thing I'd want to do one day. It sounds, it sounds really exciting. And then when the time came, I thought, you know what, actually, I think this is a really good example of a way to get in and get my hands dirty. And I remember I met with Amber on something like the 10th of March, 2020. And then we met, really hit it off. And then we were like, right, we've got to work together. We've got to make it work. So we were getting all excited about it. And then 10 days later, we went into a lockdown, and it was like, right. So, we still kept in touch. And then I carried on working in Design by Night. And then in the August of that year, I was like, when we were coming out, Eat Out to Help Out and all that stuff was kicking off. I was like, right, now is a really good time to obviously start working together, and I moved over in that August, and obviously over 5 years later, I'm still here.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So what was the first part of Bums and Seats? What was the role?
So the role initially was, I was actually looking at, it was much more around the operational side of the business in terms of the team, the clients, the commerciality of it, the hours, and that sort of aspects of it. We kept it very broad. We knew that I had my skill set around obviously Design by Night at the time, and my experience of other booking platforms, etc., was something that didn't exist within Bums and Seats at the time. So it was.
So what was the focus of Bums and Seats at that point?
At that time, it was a lot of it was focused on there was consultancy elements of it, so working with businesses on how to better improve their customer flows and their inquiry management and things like that. And obviously, as part of that, you have to look at booking systems, right? So. But knowing what the right one is for the right business, you don't necessarily need.
You actually slotted in quite nicely to fix that jigsaw that was missing.
Exactly, and then what transpired is actually that then got bigger. That piece of the jigsaw got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it ended up actually that there was a lot more of a demand for it than perhaps we originally thought. And then so I actually started going down that route, and I started working with lots of different suppliers directly, and on how their platform was built, and actually what competition is, and how you can actually how they could make that platform better, and what actually working with their clients and actually helping them build that roadmap and product.
So were you from speaking to the clients that you had and bringing that feedback in, and from your experience, were you then feeding back to the suppliers? I think actually it would be, the last 30 customers we've spoken to would love to see this.
Yeah. Basically, and also with their own clients, in partnership, we were able to go and speak to them and get them to pad it out a bit more, help them understand, again, what it's like, what is actually what are the priorities here?
To get the best out of the tool.
Yeah.
Nice. So then you end up having suppliers coming to you saying, actually, we're going to lose all these customers. Can you? Yeah. That's fantastic.
So there's been one or two that we've done that with, I think, and again with all the clients that Bums and Seats have ever worked with, either on a one-off basis or on a long-term thing, that the scope of different platforms that they use, again, it means that I've had lots of exposure to a lot of them, which means that I like to think I'm in a good position to go, right, okay, actually, right, for a 40 cover restaurant in Soho in central London versus an 800 packs that you're doing for the marketing event, two very different platforms that are needed. An open table might not be needed for those big ones versus a small restaurant turning tables.
Yeah. Okay, so did you become the go-to basically for just that part, or as well as the other roles that I can listen? Your brain works probably faster than me, or as fast as me. So I can imagine that you were taking on more tasks than just that. Right? So where did the role expand?
So it expanded also into partnerships. So I then really got stuck in with all the different other suppliers, everything from your Wilder Social to your Airship to your Actiols to and then when it was Mr. Young, me and you, Sprout, when it was Sprout, all that stuff I then sort of encompassed. And what my role ended up becoming as well is trying to really refine and define for individuals and clients what their ecosystem can look like.
Nice. So like the technology consultants out there that do the tech stack, you're fixing the marketing tech stack as such.
Yes.
Because back in the day, it was just email, MailChimp, right? Pretty simple.
Exactly.
And it's evolved into so much more.
Yeah.
So you basically were that, let's get you on that journey.
Yeah.
And then putting the right systems in place.
Exactly. And then also then honing in on how do you then actually make that platform work for you. It can do all the sexy stuff. And look, I'm not saying that I was ever like that sort of on the onboarder for those platforms, but I was able to really, okay, right, this is your central till, for example, how do you work around that? But really focusing on actually that sales cycle, how can you utilize these tech products to make them all work together, but also then make sure that you're utilizing them and being able to grow your sales as such.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of brands that we speak to that struggle, and they get a really good CRM or CDP platform, and it's amazing. It can do so much, and then there's that terrified moment of they've got it.
Yeah,
there's data going in, but there's just nothing happening because either they don't know how to use it or they're stuck. And then you've got the other piece of the reservation system. Very fragmented tech, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you must see it all the time. You go into a business and it all looks good. Yeah, the booking flow looks good, but there's there's missing pieces.
Exactly, and I think that's part of the bums and seats model. Like we like to get under the first thing we like to do is our sort of auditing and process. We get under the bonnet.
Yeah,
and particularly we look at that pre-booked element of it and the sales arm of it. We know what's actually working. What is your percentage of pre-book versus your overall sales margins and things like that. And we go, right, how's that system working? Particularly a booking system, how's that working? And then being going, right, okay, what are your trends, what are your opportunities, where are your gaps? And then going, right, now we know with the status quo, so to speak. Then we can go, right, what's your process? So because what we see a lot of is it's the customer flow, the website might be really strong, and then but then what happens if I'm a group of 30, 40, 50?
Yeah, flopped off.
What happens? Who's handling that? Well, that next step, who's working on that? And are the right tools and processes in place and the skill set and the team, is that all right? If you've got a central function, if you've got a sales function, what's happening there? Have they got everything from email templates through to everything like that? What can they
basically
use?
breaking every piece down into small pieces and then trying to puzzle it back together into like a nice into your Bible.
Exactly.
I think Glenda was saying when she left somewhere, I was like, when you left, did you take the Bible with you? Because there's a Bible she built. She goes, absolutely. Yeah. Because it's something, it's a framework. So have you built that framework now? So that's obviously the different types of businesses.
Sure.
But I'm assuming you've got like a different framework the proven framework that's working.
Yeah.
And then you go through those steps.
The kind of ways we do it, because it also kind of works in line with like what the quick wins are. Look at your system, look at that. Then once you kind of, and my team get really sick of the metaphor I use all the time is the leaking bucket analogy, being like, if you can do all the sexy stuff, you could have the world's best marketer, you could have a share hot BD, you could have all that are really driving the stuff in at the top.
And then it's just flowing out.
But if it just flows out, you might only get 10% of all the hard work and energy and effort and time and money that you're spending up here. By the time it hits that, it's not translating. So my role, a lot of it sits on how do we plug those gaps? How do we make that bucket, not leaking, but also really formidable.
The leaky bucket. I love that.
Yeah. It's one of my go-tos, and I talk to all my clients about it because I think it really helps bring it alive a bit more. Because
100%, my mind goes immediately to the money just going down the drain, right?
Exactly. Like when it comes to the system, it's what's being automatically, what can it do for you, smarter, harder, versus then when the process side, is it taking too long to convert? Being picked up fast enough. Yeah. But also then what you're selling. What's your loyalty, what's your local plan, what's your B2B, your B2C, what's all of that, what's your offer, your menus, your brochures, all that jazz.
And guess what's being lost and you must see so much possibility. Like it must be like terrifying. Like, because you don't want to tell the customer everything that's, my mind goes to like, oh, look, this is amazing. So you've lost like the last 50 events. They've all just disappeared. Yeah. Like you don't want to say anything, but obviously you can make a point to.
Yeah. And to be fair, and I like to be that direct with them, I think, and there are always opportunities within to grow, and I think even for bums on seats and for me and everything like that, I always look for ways to grow, feedback, etc. Yeah, I think what I like to really talk to them about and talk them through is and the word I always use with them is opportunities. I don't like, we don't. I don't.
Yeah, there's
like
no detractors, right?
Yes,
not positive
exactly.
And not negative.
None of those like negative language and stuff. I like to, it's only opportunities. You've got, okay, that's where you were, but actually we now need to be looking ahead. What can we learn from this and move forward? That's something that's the process, the first process we always like to go through.
So is that what's the journey like? So bums on seats, right? There's a lot that you do. What's the journey like? I obviously don't want to sell all your secrets on here, but I'm just curious on how that flow looks. So do you do, like, client comes on board, obviously there's probably loads of questions to answer and so on. Is there like an immediate deep dive into breaking everything apart?
Yeah, that's literally, it tends to be the first thing that we do. So we'll go through this process as part of the deep dive. It takes a couple of weeks for us to do, but again, looking at that system, looking at that data, looking at those processes, looking at that that sales arsenal. We then put that together, and then it's all well and good kind of saying, right, like, that doesn't work, or that's, an opportunity there. But actually, what is the biggest opportunity there? We then look at, what are your, we call it our 90-day plans. So we will go away, do all that work, present you with all that stuff, and then go, right, okay, now what do you need to do about it? Here's your 90-day plan. Here's your commercial sales strategy, long term, mid, long term. What does that look like? What should the targets be? The goals, looking at your budgets, looking at labor percentages, everything between. Therefore, what do you need to hit, and how do you hit it?
Yeah.
We work a lot on that. And then what are your key, we call them our key pillars as well. What are your key pillars for growth? Is it spend per heads? Is it new business? Is it converting the existing ones that's coming through? Maybe that bit in the middle is breaking down. What are those, what are those goals and objectives? And again, as I say, how do you get there? So that comes all together, a nice neat package. Here we go. And then there's no obligation for any business to go, all right, now we want to, now you need to work with us. They can go, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Ed. Love that. We're now going to go and do it. And I'll go, happy days. Let's touch base after those 90 days and see how you're getting on.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Go away. I was like, stop talking, Adam. But the new iPhone doesn't let you press stop anymore. You have to swipe.
You have to swipe. I mean,
killer. That's really interesting. And also, it's so I guess that's a project the customer can then choose which route they want to take. So if they're comfortable doing with your implementing your plan, you can sit there. So then I guess it gives the customer, the business, a really good opportunity. Well, if they know and solid at the fact they can take what you've shown them, that consultancy piece has made a massive difference.
Completely.
And if they haven't got the resource, which is probably more than not, they can use you guys to put that.
Yeah. A lot of the time, it's all about sometimes about skill set. So they might have the resource, but maybe not the skill set. So, for example, literally this morning, I was talking to a kind of a medium-sized restaurant group, and we've done that exercise with them, and they are now looking at, right, okay, they've got a bit of a personnel thing at the moment, so they're like, right, actually, we just need to, what can we do now to impact Christmas, and actually, what are the opportunities that we can do there? And actually, it's looking at, right, okay, we need to just flesh that out a bit more. And then I can go, right, I can just do this, or my team can do it, and let's just get those wheels in motion. So that happens quite often, and they might look at that plan and go, right, we can do that, or Ed, can you do this, or can your team do that? And it's kind of a checklist almost. And then, so it does then sort of lead into that consultancy arm, and we work with different businesses based on different models, everything from, one-off pieces of work after that initial phase through to ongoing retainers. We've had clients now for 3-4 years on a retainer, which is great. But we've also
with those ones, do you dive in and out, or are they consistently just use you?
Consistently. So it's based on, we might be in there, if they have the whole bumps on seats package, they have access to, data and systems and that thing, so they can regularly get that, the reporting arm of it, for example. They also get, potentially a sales director, head of sales sort of level in there on a day a week, 2 days a week, whatever that looks like. They also get that sort of board level reporting that can be generated by myself, Amber, etc. They get that whole package, and that's kind of why people then like to work with us.
Well, then you're giving them proof and a nice amount of bundle to give to the board if there's a board or whatever, because there's always that challenge, right, of how are you pulling out the right data, and then the resource and so on. So I remember when I had Catherine a couple of weeks back, she was saying that one of the biggest things that she remembers or talks about is having that auto reply email on the sales inbox. Yeah. And I went to a client about a week later and was just talking about the podcast and stuff. And he screamed at his sales marketing person to run over and he go, do we have an out of office reply? Do we have an automatic reply on any email that comes in? Because you just break it down, right? If it's for a group event, because you get all these, you'll get so many emails that come in that will just be, I want a table for 3. Yeah. And you want to direct them in the right place. And again, not everyone has 7 people we got clients in Mayfair, they've got like 8 people on the reservations every day. They're consistently doing it, which is great. Yeah. You'll always get through to someone. But if there's one restaurant, maybe in the city, who doesn't have that facility to have 8 staff on the phone, then there's that challenge. And I think the auto reply thing was like a really similar, simple, task.
Yeah. I think that there are definitely things like that with it, that are in script that should be, when you think about it, you're like, oh, that's actually really obvious. But I think, there are so many, what I'd be looking at is so many things like that, but so many ways of, capacity management and things like, in that example you just gave, why is a group of 3 coming in saying they're looking to, why can't they? Yeah. What's going on? And we're looking at all those avenues to find out what why are they coming through like
Yeah,
that?
why did they even call?
Yeah,
Why weren't they guided to the right place?
exactly.
Yeah,
And saying
that's
why,
interesting.
why was it not just automatically slotting in? They're calling for for 2 p.m. on a Monday. That might not be, that might not be necessary. They might not need to do it. And of course, there's obviously demographics and all that stuff to consider, and everyone's different. But I think just making it for those that want to as easy as possible to kind of take it.
Yeah,
to be able to
one
do
of
any
one
route
of
they
my
want.
one of my long time close friend of mine as well. They've done the IVR and the phone system so difficult. You actually cannot get through to anyone.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be like a wizard to get through. To eventually get through to the restaurant and because they're so busy. And upstairs is really busy. Downstairs is so. But it's really interesting how she's done it because she's done it that way because nearly every single phone call isn't that important.
Yeah.
They know that people can book online. It's the guide has been given on every part of that phone journey and the website. She's done it. They've done it in a nice way.
Yeah.
But the tree is literally hilarious.
Yeah, honestly, there are so many businesses that that have such a vast number of phone calls. There was one group we were working with that have something they were getting a call every about second and a half, and it was relentless, and there was no automations going on. It was
just ring.
Just ring, and until someone picks up, or again, the drop-off rate was wild. So it's about okay, we work with them we work with businesses from that perspective on like, right, okay, is there any part of it that can be automated if you want to? Understand if you don't, but actually, the hunt groups, if it's press 1 for this, press 2 for that, like working with them on what's the best one for your style, and again, they go helping that customer journey, and hopefully when it gets through to the right person.
Yeah, because that's the worst, isn't it?
Essentially, as someone who's the salesperson who wants to deal with, massive events, they don't want to know if you lost your scarf last night. They want to know, they don't want to be dealing with that. They want that to go to somewhere else to deal with. So again, it's making the most time, being more efficient, as I say, making the most time, with the people that you've got.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember I used to run events, so I always remember the lost property line.
Yeah.
And I think at one point, this is like, 15 years ago or something, and I was like, why don't you just do an option and just send it to a voicemail? I said, and then just get your GM to check it, but this is before voicemail to email, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, that's a really good idea, because we have so many, it was a nightclub, so many stupid phone calls
I bet,
saying I've lost. I said, just get one of your guys to check it at the end of every day and listen and just write it down. And I must have saved them so much, just the lost property thing.
Just literally lost property. Yeah, again, it's those little things. So imagine if that saves someone 30, 40 minutes a day where they can be better off spending it somewhere else.
Okay, so let's talk about that's interesting. Sorry, I was looking at some of the questions here. It said here that you've said that the guest journey starts online, not at the door. And then also talking about how do operators leak revenue today, and what quick wins can transform bookings to retention? We talked about the leaky bucket already.
Yeah,
but it'd be interesting to get some little nuggets of genius from you.
Yeah, I think I mean, again, one of the things I'm working with a couple of businesses on at the moment, and actually I'm actually working with a rather large pub group at the moment, and they're calling it their sprint project, where I'm going around to about 21 of their several hundred pubs, but I'm going around to 21 of them and actually working with them on what can they do now and their quick wins, and for each on a localized level. So everything from, I'm looking, they use Collins, for example. So I'm looking at, everything from that capacity management to those rules, or, are they looking at tables in the right areas at the right time for the right thing, a drinks area versus a bar area, can they, drinks and food, sorry, and then going, right, actually, is that table actually in the drinks area? Can that be used for food? All right, and actually, but maybe it's not the preferred option, or maybe you want ones by the window, and then maybe you want the booths last, and because they're the prime spots, and maybe you just want to save that for someone VIP or whatever it may be. So it's really getting to optimize that, but also making the most of the space that they've got and how they're using it. So I would be looking.
Most people would just open the book up and then you just book whatever. Right?
Exactly. But actually being smart with it, because you might have an area of and this is part of the capacity management piece I'm doing with this business, where if you've got a pub that's got a lot of tables that you can shift and move around to make one large one, but then you've got another part of the pub which is actually they're bolted down, you can't really do much with them. Sell those first.
Yeah.
Because they can take the 4s, the 3s, the 4s, the 5s, 6s, whatever it may be. Save these ones till last, because actually in the time that they're getting booked up, you might get it a 12 or a 15 that you actually can put on those.
So can you set those rules in the platform?
Yeah.
So that those tables get offered first?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So I'm going to be doing that on an individual basis with each of those sites, and that level of
I guess you have
customer-
to obviously have to see them as well. You might be able to see photos, but when
Which
you
is
see
what I
the
do,
space,
which is why I'm going face to face.
sprint.
So I'm going all over literally it's a sprint. I'm going all over the country, from Dover to Liverpool to Southwest Wales to Devon to Ipswich. All over the shop. So I think
Is that but there's for going back to the experience that you had working as well. So there's there's a difference between people who are in sales and who are in marketing to someone who's actually been working as in an operation. So do you think that's definitely helped the eye? Because sales is sales, right? And you don't always see it sometimes. You might, but when you've worked in a space and seen the challenges firsthand, do you think that's been a massive driver?
100%. And you can. It also went, because I always say to a lot of businesses, it's all about the mindset of the people on the ground. Because if they don't believe in and you must also see it from a tech perspective. If they don't believe in the product that you've implemented, then actually it's never going to get used.
You need buy-in, right?
You need the buy-in, and that's why I do it. And in getting people to understand, actually this is beneficial for you to hit your budget, to hit your labour percentage. I see a lot of those, a lot of that part of the sector obviously focusing a lot on that labour percentage, but actually focus on what you can get a bit more up the top. That's easy, low hanging.
I love that tip to utilise the lockdown stuff first that isn't flexible, and then get that. So because that will sell. Because as you said, the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s will always go, and then utilising the second space to be a bit more flexible. Exactly.
And the other elements of it is, other small wins that I always talk to a lot of venues about is looking at things like, arrivals. Are you staggering arrivals? There's so many businesses I've spoken to that can go, we can only allow 12 people to come in a 15-minute window, and it's going, well, so does that say you wouldn't see a group of 15? And they're like, well, yeah, we can. And I was like, well, okay, well, we can increase that therefore. So, and we can't possibly do, or they can't do a group of 15.
They don't want everyone arriving at once, right? So then how do you?
So how do you just make it smarter, where it's like you can restrict it based on you're not going to have 30s come in the space of an hour, so you can work on that. Again, it's just being a bit smarter.
It's just tweaking the tech, right?
It's tweaking.
I didn't even think about I'm not. My brain doesn't go to that. I'm not on that side. So it's so interesting. I'm literally, my brain's going, you would not want 40 people turning up at one time into that. So,
and I see a lot where, they restrict themselves without having need to. You might go, and the phrase I often use is the goalpost. Start the goalpost out here, and then let's just bring it in based on, again, if it was a pub, Sunday lunches, you might fine, you might bring the goalpost in, but you don't need to apply the rules for a Sunday lunch to a Tuesday at 2:00.
No.
If a group of 30 want to come in, then on that Tuesday, because you might not fill it the same way you would on a Sunday. So again, it's having different rules for different times, different pacing, and things like that.
It's that playbook, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And being there in that venue is going to drive it. And I've done that with another kind of pub group, about mid-size pub group, that they within about 12 months of these types of tweaks and just increasing it just ever so slightly, resulted in about £500,000 worth of additional pre-book revenue that was automated that they may have otherwise not got.
So it's so interesting. Just making small changes can make a massive difference, right? It is. So you just don't think about it, and I think that's where it sometimes gets lost. And I said earlier as well today, it's the other thing of that's how it's always been. And this is a common theme when it comes to everyone I'm speaking to over the last 2 months. It's like, what's your frequency? 5. How do you know? That's just it is. Or why is it booking this way? Because it has. Because it always has been. Well, who did that? I don't know.
It's always I get so much of that, and again, going back to something you said before around my going from a place where I had none of this. I had a paper diary, and that's what I wish I had that. The way it's always been with me was always paper diary, but actually growing through that is really it's been really valuable, and I think and being able to apply it's important.
No, this is awesome. I mean, just some of the tips you're giving now, and hopefully people will hear, and obviously call you, but will hear and can put just little things in place, because it is the little things you can tee and test and so on. Exactly. So that's amazing. Okay. We've got actually one of the last questions, which I quite like from here. I don't often take the questions from here, but this one's pretty good. This is like innovation in the future. You've delivered 300 10% booking uplifts and champion partnerships, training and tech. What role will innovation, data, and people play in the future of hospitality sales? I like that question.
It was a good question.
Yeah.
Again, when I said to her, I'm not 100% sure where that came from. I've definitely said it because I know who it was about, but
I got great research.
Yeah, it's great. So I think, look, there's something to be said for a lot of innovation out there. Hospitality as an industry is and needs to be and maintain that innovation. There are some really cool stuff going on out there. There's some fantastic people out there, and there is so much talent, and I think we cannot lose that. And I think that therefore those people will have great ideas, and the next generation are going to have even bigger and bigger ideas. And I think we cannot lose that. I always say when it comes to tech and hospitality, I always say tech should only ever enhance, never replace.
Yeah.
And I know in the world of AI, it could be a little bit scary and things like that, and a lot of the news and stuff around it. But I actually think, how can we harness it and not use it to replace, but actually keep what we've got, but be again more efficient? And I think one thing that we're doing as a sort of sister business, which I mentioned earlier, is we're building and at the moment it's in about 50 venues at the moment.
Awesome.
Is our platform called Heidi, and it's essentially taking that data. It's essentially the bums on seats model, right? It's taking that data and it's putting it into a much more readable fashion, and then it's using the power of AI and chatbots and stuff to go, right, okay, what do you need to do about it? So if your spend per head has been down for the last 6 weeks, okay, what actions can be taken in order to increase it to get it back up to where it
So you're
needs to
giving
be?
Heidi a little bit of a brain.
Basically,
Nice.
yeah, Heidi
Great
is a
name.
person, so it's like Heidi says you can look at doing this.
Yeah.
And you can use
So are you feeding that information into like the giant knowledge bit of the bums on seats knowledge like brain?
essentially, yeah. So the bums on seats
So
brain.
basically, they've sat you in front of a recorder, a mic to say, go.
That's literally what it is. So Amber and I literally sat in a room for 2 days and basically fed this AI all the information from our brains, and we got the team also to do the same.
Amazing.
We're all working together, and there's always that need for people, and we Bumps and Seats will always be a business that we love and nurture. And I think there's a really great collaboration being like, right, okay, to a point around resource. I might not have the resource. Bumps and Seats can feed really nicely into that. So I think it works really, really well. And the businesses that we're working with at the moment.
So you taking what data are you feeding into it?
So at the moment it's taking bookings data, it's taking that element of it. We've got some really exciting stuff and vision for it. Putting all different data touch points from the weather to, to even Wi-Fi potentially at one stage. And I think looking at that it's the idea to become the sales project management solution where you have a real understanding of what's going on, what the forecast is saying, what and what previously happened, what trends are happening, and actually how can you then utilize it.
So basically it's like a Tenzo for sales and marketing, really.
Yeah.
Or Nori or such, right?
Yeah.
It's feeding all that data into one. I will say, I think on the WhatsApp group, there must have been, and I've had my clients saying, I just want a dashboard to give me what sales is happening, but also maybe plug some CRM data, so booking data.
Yeah.
I can look into CRM and I can have a look at it. Great.
Yeah.
I can maybe look at some of the touch points in there, but it doesn't really give me what I want and fit the sales side. Yeah. And I think you're building what everyone's asking to not only is it can help you with information, but feed the data into a single place where someone can just go, right, I want to see what happened this month versus last year, or month to year, or month by month, or so on.
And we can do all of that. And it's not just based on covers, bookings, value. It's everything from your conversions through to, one thing that the businesses that are using at the moment are really finding very helpful is they can see exactly where was I this time last year for Christmas.
Yeah, amazing.
And how are they tracking that? Is it a
and what's
volume
going wrong, right?
Yeah, is it a volume issue, or is it actually we're not converting the same amount? Maybe we have the number of covers and maybe bookings are down, which was we're seeing a lot of. But actually, maybe.
So are you also loading some factors in, like for example, the resource or how many calls are actually coming in, and that's are you giving like manually feeding that data in as well?
Yeah.
So that they can actually see, well, hold on, we actually had like 15 staff last year grabbing all these bookings and we've got 4. That's a big difference.
Exactly. So we can start looking at all that base. And again, we're it's been backed by Clive Watson from City Pub and sold it to Young's. He's our chairman investor, and we're using all that style of knowledge and building this out. It's only being kind of being in that sort of
so you sort of MVP
focus.
still?
We're past that, but I think we're slow and steady. Soft.
Yeah.
We haven't done the official launch, so this is a semi-exclusive.
This is really exciting.
So,
thank you. I'm very excited. I'd love to see some of it actually. There's a need for what you're building, and you've got the partner you have already has location. So no brainer, take my data.
Yeah.
And you're probably learning more with the data you're feeding into it.
Yeah.
You'll learn more and more.
Because it's incidence reactive. It can, again, you don't no longer have to rely on that human error aspect of it. And, we are different to the Tenzos and Noris. We don't want to be in the same
That's more
realm.
financial stuff, right?
It's
So
they're
the
the more-
GM would have that on his phone, whatever, but you'll have the sales and marketing director having that on their thing, on their phone, to looking, understanding. Imagine, I mean, I said to a client else the other day who was talking about moving from pods to different pods, right, for the other tech stack, and having like sales, and we're talking about Nori and Tenzo and the solutions out there, and I was like, look, the CEO can sit on a toilet and look at it, and not that you want to sit on the toilet, but, but the same sort of thing that applies here, really. You've had lunch. Actually, let me go check on this, and then mobile, right? Highlights, and that's all the directors want, really, or board level people want, is the highlights,
exactly,
right? Without having to dig out a report from the CRM.
Exactly. And from an operational side, ones that maybe businesses that don't necessarily have that sales and marketing function, so to speak, it's one lonely GM that's having to be wearing several hats, is going, I don't know where to start. I've got potentially a sales or marketing issue, or I'm not performing the same way I was this time last year. I don't understand why. What can I do? Then that feeds into, what the AI can then do, and being able to see
basically the natural language questions to convert it into real world answers.
Yeah, and being able to apply it.
Yeah. And giving the solutions to do it. And then does it break out and go, your time has ended, speak to bums on seats?
Essentially, being like, that's one of the things, being like, got any trainings issues, we can definitely, we know a company that can help you with that sales training.
I love that. I love that.
So it's really great kind of synergies both ways.
Yeah.
From bums on seats, we know a lot of businesses work with, understanding that data it doesn't exist for a lot of the time. Not everyone, of course. But we know they know a solution.
We have clients that are feeding the seven data into spreadsheets still to then pull out the data.
Exactly.
Like, it's just having to do that because the reporting isn't good enough.
Yeah.
Or feeding the data out of that, and then feeding 3 or 4 systems into like Excel.
Yes.
Which just blows my mind.
Yep.
Right. Or they may be sticking it into ChatGPT, which is probably not the best thing to do. But you're using the API, so you're okay.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting. So when is that going to be like?
So we're obviously it's live in 50 sites at the moment, and I think we're growing, and we're
iterating, basically.
Sorry,
you're iterating.
Yeah,
making little tweaking changes.
And again, we're at that stage where we can have conversations with different clients who've got different platforms and things like that. And we're doing that at the moment. It's as I say, it's live in different styles, from your competitive socializing through to your high-end restaurants to your pubs and bars.
But it must be so interesting to see all the data flying in.
Yeah, that's where we want to go.
Yeah.
Being able to do this kind of opt-in, where you opt in your data, and in return you get the anonymized data.
Yeah.
So you can see where you sit
in that marketplace.
In the market.
Hello.
So again, bars,
ringing the bell.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
So
benchmark is massive. That's just that piece on its own is gold dust.
Exactly.
Because people will want to know how well they're sitting in CompSoc, or how well they're sitting in fine dining or casual dining, or fast casual within that. It doesn't have to be the same location.
Yeah.
But like some of the EPOS systems out there allow you to do this, like, because it's credit card data, so they can see how well you're doing, and some of the feedback platforms do it as well.
Yeah.
But if you could start to build out what you're building, and then it's weird because before the team marketing group, WhatsApp group, no one talked to each other.
Yeah,
everyone was very much like keep
just your chest.
Yeah, and then now, obviously since COVID, it's so supportive out there. So I think you're doing this now. I really think that people will be much more open to say, 100%. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people are really open to kind of new ideas and new tech, which is great. And I think you're right that the team marketing WhatsApp group has been a real great sharer in that sort of innovation and stuff. And I think and we're in a position where we want to make the platform as I've worked at Design, I've worked at the Access Group, know the tech, understand how that works. I want to feed as much information, not just data, but in terms of feedback into me to be able to kind of.
Well, I think my brain goes to, if Nick was still at Design Night, they would have already built. They would have been building what you're building. That's the challenge, right? Because the product is there. Yeah. It does a lot. It's lots of people use it. Yeah. But it stayed there because that's what it is. Same with other platforms. Some of them have just stayed and not changed. So I think it's quite nice. You've actually built the next level of what potentially could have been built into it, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing to say we can't work alongside. And if they do go down that route, we can work alongside these.
But they might just buy it, so it'll be right.
Well, you never know. We've got bigger vision. We've got so many exciting things and so many things we want to do with it, which I'll tell you offline. So
that sounds amazing. And I think yeah, music to my ears. The just the dashboard and to interrogate it
Yeah.
is a job. It's
Yeah.
literally someone's role as such. Who I'm going to employ someone to just start doing this. They don't need to.
Yeah.
They can just utilize that tool. I'm not saying it's replacing people's job. It's making their life easier.
Yeah.
And that's why I think some people get scared with AI. They're like, it's taking everyone's jobs and so on.
Exactly.
It's really there to assist you and to make your life easier.
Exactly. Because we a lot of, one thing this stat I always love is, 30% of business revenue tends to be lost due to inefficiencies. And one thing I speak about with a lot of the clients around that is, even if a head of sales or sales director or head of marketing that's reporting on the sales and bookings figures, if they have to just spend a half a day putting it into, an Excel and having to pivot the hell out of it, that's half a day's of someone's salary. That's, a day a fortnight, that's 2 days a month, that's 24 days a year, that's just the month of February nearly. In potentially something that you can do in seconds. Yeah. And that in itself, that level of efficiency, we're always, both with Bums and obviously with Heidi as well, looking to remove. And
yeah, 100%. Make you more efficient. Yeah. I'm interested to see what the tagline will be when you do it. 'Cause, so that's amazing. I'm going to give you a little round of applause. Thank you. That was super interesting. I'm really excited, actually. Yeah. I want to know. Once we're off, I want to know more. Seriously, because it really isn't. They're really I hate the word problem. It's just ingrained in me for years that you can't resolve a problem because it's an issue because we're in tech, right? Yeah. But there are problems to fix in hospitality. Yeah. And I think what you've done and the route you've taken is fixing a problem. Yeah. Massive problem. Yeah. And the switch on for something like that to feed in data to then seamlessly, quickly and fast show you what's going wrong is blow my mind. Yeah, so
the opportunities are endless. When you think about it in all different realms of where all the data touch points.
Well, you fed all your knowledge into it, so it immediately knows what to look at. Yeah. So something that could have taken you logging, it's even yours, you guys, you logging in to the customer's information, having it through, pulling out the report, all this sort of like things. I'm assuming it's probably helping your team, excel as well. Yeah. So
you bump the bumps and seats. Clients, as some of them are using the platform, so actually it makes our team work harder, faster, because they know they can identify a problem before it becomes a problem.
That's a game changer. So amazing. Okay, so let's go to the final questions, and thank you. I'm really excited. Best restaurant. I know it's a tricky one because you have clients as well, but
I mean, I'm gonna go for my personal favorites, but I think really any of the Indian restaurants that sit within the JKS restaurants are phenomenal. Jim Kana is a personal favorite of mine. Ambassadors Clubhouse, one of the newer ones. It's definitely one of my very good friends, Lucy Cole's sales director there. She's taken me to all of them, so it's fantastic. And so they are amazing restaurants, but I've also got a soft spot for Tattoo and that group. Again, it was one of the
I think it's the one down from here, but it's impressive. Cocktails are unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. And the one in Manchester was one of the first sort of like swanky ones I kind of restaurants I went to when I was a student living up there. I was able to have one time only a year when I was doing graduation, finishing exams. So it's kind of got a nice little special place in it. But yeah, they're my pretty much.
Okay, awesome. Best burger.
Best burger. I would say Fallow in Piccadilly Circus there. They're anything. If you're a burger fan, meat fan, anything like that, they do some absolutely splendid food, and their chips are also phenomenal.
Yeah, amazing. Actually, the first Fallow, to be fair, but I haven't been there for the burger, but I will have other stuff there.
It's great.
It's insane. Okay, best hotel.
Can I say anywhere?
Anywhere.
Yeah,
could be the Premier Inn in Bristol. It doesn't matter.
So I've got a soft spot for a place called Pine Cliffs, which is kind of a resort in the Algarve in southern Portugal. My family have got like a place near there, and so somewhere like growing up, I was going there, and it's got really spectacular views and champagne bars at sunset overlooking one of the most gorgeous beaches and things like that. It's on my list for a wedding venue potentially one day. But yes, I would say that's just because of the sentimental value behind it.
Perfect. Okay, 2 questions for the next guest. Could be operator, marketer.
I would want to know what is the best sales and marketing campaign that they've seen in the sector, and why is it their favorite? And then the other one I would be interested to know is who do they admire most in the sector and why?
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Some
That's good.
positivity.
Yeah, it is positivity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I'm interested. Actually, the first question, I'm really interested to hear what they say, because there's lots of different things happening out there.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to give you another round of applause. Thank you. Give everyone a wave goodbye. Thank
So
you.
much.